Friends, in a very short time available to me, I'll be talking about a subject that touches all our lives. In short, imperialism today. Human history, of course, has been a history of imperialism since times immemorial. When one imperial force or empire replaced another and then another. But imperialism took a very advanced shape during the age of colonization, when different Western powers, Britain, France, Portugal, Holland, Belgium even, went forth, Spain went forth and colonized a huge part of the globe. This included the Americas, this included almost all of Asia and Africa. And we see for almost 200 years, the colonial empires of all these countries existed in these continents. It was only after the Second World War and before the beginning of the Cold War that these colonial empires slowly but surely started uh, dismantling. We all know that in 1947, the subcontinent was divided into India and Pakistan. And then so many other countries of Africa and Asia in the 60s, in the 50s, started getting their independence. And as far as the outward appearances were concerned, we see that imperialism was no more, or colonialism was no more. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Instead of physically occupying these continents and these countries, a new system came into being. A system that was cleverly shrouded, and a system whose narrative was that of development, of support, of education and help. Institutions like the World Bank or the Asian Bank came into being, and countries like Pakistan and so many other countries in Asia and Africa were slowly drawn into this trap of debts, debts for things that were not immediately required or needed, but debts that ultimately saw all these countries enter a new phase of colonialism, a phase when their local leaderships or local governance was in their own hands per se, but their economic and their uh, political strings were now being drawn by international monetary institutions, who in turn, of course, were being driven by the same Western powers that had previously directly ruled these countries. As a result, we see that whether it is Africa or Asia, whatever mineral or natural resource they possessed was ultimately used and ultimately used as raw material by the West. The political stability of all these countries was sadly sadly undermined. We begin as far back as Iran, when a certain prime minister tried to get the control of Irani oil and his government was was immediately dismantled. So many times in Africa, where we have the greatest storage of world's minerals, diamonds, golds, rare metals, so many times have we seen leaders trying to rise and get their sovereignty back. And so many times have we start seeing their governments falling. This is the new kind of imperialism. An imperialism which is supported by the corrupt elites of each country, including ours. And the only way to get rid of this imperialism and to regain our sovereignty is to reject the lifestyle that has been forced upon us, the requirements, the needs that are not needs at all, that have been forced upon us, the cars, the bungalows, the foreign visits and education that is being has become the lifestyle of our elite. We have to reject that lifestyle. We have to go back to our basics. And we have to invest in ourselves, in our education, in our well being, in our equality within ourselves. Sovereignty would only be won back with a big price. Thank you.